So AEW Double or Nothing was a long show, but can't stop us because we got a lot of AEW and WWE news to talk about. From MJF, CM Punk winning the title, WWE advertising the Money in the Bank during the Double or Nothing pay-per-view, and more. This is Wrestle Around, keeping you up to date with all the wrestling coverage. So hit those notifications and let's get into it. Now there is a lot to catch up in regards to MJF and AEW. We could be here for quite a bit explaining the whole situation, but right now there is just a lot of vague details in regards to it. We know that he no-showed the meet and greet that ended up happening on Saturday, one day before Double or Nothing pay-per-view. There was a lot of reports back and forth on whether or not he will show up at the pay-per-view, which he ultimately did, but it's clear that his issues with AEW or with Tony Khan continues. Quick recap, the issue seems to stem from the fact that MJF is not necessarily too happy that there is a lot of WWE superstar coming into AEW and basically making more money than him. He is obviously a top heel in the company and right now is trying to negotiate a much better contract than the one he has right now, as he has a quote-unquote outgrown that contract. Now that is just the bare bone of the whole situation, as we just continue to get multiple reports on what is happening. One thing is certain though, whatever is going to happen will likely be resolved off television, as the very latest reports after the AEW Double or Nothing pay-per-view is that MJF is not expected to appear on AEW programming in the near future. In the matchup against Wardlow, MJF was basically taken out, written off TV for the foreseeable future. It was made extremely clear that he was being written off TV, as he even was stretchered out. There were reports earlier in the day that MJF was not at the building, and that is true. He showed up shortly before his match and then left the building right after the match was over. Obviously MJF is still with the company, but do not expect him to see him for a while. To make things even more realistic, Tony Khan said that he will not comment on the MJF situation during the media scrum, so we are very much left in the dark on a lot of the details of what is happening. So we're gonna have to wait and see where this story takes us next. Into another report, it looks like there is more AEW wrestlers that want to go to WWE, as according to the Wrestling Observer Radio, Brian Alvarez indicated that there has been a big shift among people in AEW. Not that they want out, but it's definitely different in the sense that I get the impression that more people are willing to go to WWE if they get like a great offer, whereas a couple of years ago that wouldn't have been the case. The reason for it seems to be Cody Rhodes. Cody is obviously doing great on WWE right now, literally becoming the top babyface, and it looks like because WWE been doing such a great job in pushing him, now things have changed in terms of the way that people view potentially going to WWE. Ironically, this is exactly what WWE wanted when we first heard of them wanting Cody Rhodes. They want this to be a successful story so that more outside wrestlers would join in. And here's some big news. Big E is no longer wearing a neck brace, which seems to indicate that his recovery is going well. In the image, he had an Exogen device hooked up, which is an ultrasound bone healing system, all of which are part of his repair process. He didn't have a caption for this image, but clearly he looks in good spirits, which is good because we all love Big E. There was a lot to take in from AEW Double or Nothing. Big highlight, of course, is that CM Punk is the brand new AEW World Heavyweight Champion. And all of this happened while apparently WWE was advertising the Money in the Bank pay-per-view outside of the arena. That pay-per-view obviously is happening in Las Vegas as well, from the MG Grand Arena. As you guys can see, there was a truck advertising the upcoming Money in the Bank pay-per-view, obviously just driving back and forth and passing by the arena the whole day, probably the whole weekend, and this is not even their next pay-per-view. Hell in a Cell is this weekend and they actually don't even have one SmackDown match in that show yet. Surely they will figure something out this week. And last but not least, while WWE is doing this, they also seem to be furious at the fact that Tony Khan ended up mocking them for moving the Money in the Bank pay-per-view out of the stadium into the smaller venue. Tony Khan tweeted out that obviously it wasn't a genius move to take on Dana White and the UFC in Las Vegas during International Fight Week. And now, according to the Wrestling Observer Radio, Brian Alvarez says that Tony Khan's tweet about Money in the Bank moving location had people in WWE furious. WWE is obviously not too happy to do that to begin with, but to be fair, this was obviously a Nick Khan WWE mistake. You shouldn't have put the Money in the Bank pay-per-view in a stadium when you're not gonna hype it up like the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania. Let me know you guys' thoughts down in the comments below. For more wrestling news, subscribe to the channel and stay savage. I'll catch you on the next one.